In a dramatic turn of events, Young Thug's ban from Atlanta, a condition imposed upon his release from jail, was officially lifted after a grueling series of court trials and a staggering legal battle that cost over $500,000. The rapper, whose real name is Jeffery Lamar Williams, fought relentlessly to reclaim his right to return to the city that shaped his life and career. This victory not only marks a crucial moment in his personal and professional journey, but also sets a precedent for how the justice system handles high-profile cases involving influential public figures. From the moment Young Thug was sentenced, the banishment clause stood out as one of the most controversial aspects of his plea deal. The court had ruled that upon his release, he would be forced to leave Atlanta immediately and stay away for at least a decade, an extreme preventive measure designed to separate him from past affiliations and prevent potential criminal activity. Many saw this as a harsh and almost unconstitutional restriction, questioning whether it was truly about justice or simply a way to make an example out of the rapper. For Young Thug, leaving Atlanta wasn't just about relocating. It was about being exiled from his family, his roots, and the very foundation of his success. He had built an empire in Atlanta, mentoring younger artists, creating opportunities for those from similar backgrounds, and establishing himself as a cultural icon. The idea that he would be permanently cut off from his home was devastating, and from the moment the ruling was made, he and his legal team began strategizing ways to overturn it. The legal battle was long, exhausting, and expensive. His defense team, led by some of the most prominent attorneys in the country, filed multiple appeals, arguing that the banishment was an excessive punishment that infringed upon his constitutional rights. They cited cases where similar restrictions had been overturned, emphasizing that Young Thug was not just any individual. He was an artist, a businessman, and a father who needed to be present in the city where his support system was strongest. But the prosecution pushed back hard, insisting that the ban was a necessary preventive measure. They painted a picture of Young Thug as a figure who, despite his talent and success, had allegedly maintained ties to criminal activity. To them, keeping him away from Atlanta was the best way to ensure he wouldn't fall back into the same patterns that had landed him in trouble in the first place. For months, the case dragged on, with both sides presenting evidence, witness testimonies, and legal arguments. The courtroom was filled with tension as fans, journalists, and legal experts watched closely, knowing that this decision could have lasting implications for both Young Thug and the broader entertainment industry. Then came the financial battle. Fighting a case of this magnitude wasn't cheap. Court fees, lawyer retainers, expert witnesses, and extensive legal research quickly racked up an astronomical bill. Over $500,000 was spent on legal fees alone, with additional costs associated with investigations and public relations efforts to sway public opinion. As the trials continued, the tide slowly began to shift in Young Thug's favor. His legal team managed to present compelling evidence that he had no intention of engaging in criminal activity upon his release. They highlighted his philanthropic efforts, his commitment to mentoring young artists, and his desire to use his influence to steer Atlanta's youth away from the streets. Additionally, multiple public figures, including fellow musicians, community leaders, and even former law enforcement officials, stepped forward to vouch for him. They argued that banning Young Thug from Atlanta wasn't just a punishment for him. It was a loss for the city itself. He had contributed millions to the local economy, created countless jobs, and served as a beacon of hope for those who aspired to rise above their circumstances. Finally, after months of intense legal wrangling, the moment of truth arrived. The court, after reviewing all the evidence, ruled in favor of Young Thug. The banishment was lifted, allowing him to return to Atlanta under strict conditions. He would still be required to check in with his probation officer regularly, attend community service programs, and participate in initiatives aimed at reducing gang violence. However, he was no longer exiled from the city he called home. The reaction was immediate. Fans celebrated, social media erupted with messages of support, and fellow artists welcomed him back with open arms. For many, this wasn't just a legal victory. It was a statement that young Thug had paid his dues and deserved a chance to rebuild his life on his own terms. Despite the win, the battle left its scars. The financial strain was immense, and the legal fight had taken a toll on young Thug both mentally and emotionally. But in the end, it was worth it. He had proven that he was willing to fight for his home, his family, and his legacy. Now back in Atlanta, the question remains, what's next for young Thug? Will he stay out of trouble, rebuild his career, and use his platform for positive change? Or will the ghosts of his past continue